Our first national hero Marcus Garvey reinforced this theme very well when he said, "History teaches us that no race, no people, no nation has ever been freed through cowardice, through cringing, through bowing and scraping. But all that has been achieved to the glory of mankind, to the glory and honor of races and nations, was through manly determination and effort of those who lead and those who are led." As we observe Heritage Week, we explore a few historic sites across the island. Come with us on this historic journey inside Jamaica Magazine. I'm Adrian Atkinson. Welcome.
Jamaica, I can help you protect our citizens.
Jamaica Eye will play a part in increasing your public safety.
Jamaica Eye is part of an island-wide network of camera surveillance systems designed to increase the safety of you, our citizens. If you have a camera system outside your home or office facing a public space, log on to jamaicai.gov.jm today. Jamaica Eye, we're all connected. The Ministry of National Security, creating a safer and prosperous Jamaica.
Good day, I'm Theodore Henry, and this is your JIS News for Thursday, October 15. Government is taking another step to improve its management of the COVID-19 pandemic with plans to procure supplies of the antiviral drug remdesivir for the treatment of coronavirus patients in public facilities. The Ministry of Health and Wellness says the drug will be purchased through the National Health Fund to ensure greater access. In a statement on its website, the Health Ministry says this decision is based on the available scientific evidence, which shows that remdesivir has reduced the length of in-hospital stay by 5 days and lowered mortality rates by 4%. But the ministry cautions that clinical trials are still ongoing, and so far, the drug has not received full approval in any country and is being administered under emergency use authorization in some nations. In Jamaica, the drug's use will be allowed under the controls of a study or under an emergency license, in keeping with the authority granted to the Minister of Health under the Food and Drug Regulation of 1975, Regulation Number 73. The ministry has stipulated that prescribing and administering the drug must comply with certain conditions. Specifically, informed consent must be obtained from the patient, and inventory control systems must be put in place at the facilities to ensure that records of the dispensed product and patient information are maintained, similar to that used for controlled substances. In addition, the drug is only to be administered to hospitalized patients who are closely monitored, and serious adverse events must be tracked and reported to the Pharmacovigilance Unit of the Standards and Regulations Division of the Health Ministry. The reports are to be made using the PharmWatch Drug Monitoring Form located on the ministry's website. Clinical outcome reports must also be submitted to the Health Services Planning and Integration Branch of the ministry. In other news, Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett says investors continue to show confidence in the Jamaican market. He adds that 90% of previously planned projects are still on target despite the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Among those slated to come on stream are a 1,700-room hotel in St. James, 2,000 rooms in Green Island, Hanover, and tourism development programs for Kingston and Port Royal.
This show of confidence in Jamaica by investors has helped to boost our image as a leading tourist destination. In addition, these investments are creating job opportunities for Jamaicans and further fueling the expansion and diversification of our tourism product.
Minister Bartlett was speaking at the recent reopening of the 49-suite Zoetry Hotel in St. James. He said government was working to create an environment that could attract and foster premium investments in the sector. These interventions include investment in infrastructural development, the modernization and expansion of the 2 international airports, improvement of the road network, and expansion and development of Jamaica's cruise ship piers. Meanwhile, approximately $130 million will be spent on JAMPRO's Export Max 3 program over the 3-year period of 2019 to 2021 to build competitiveness and export readiness of micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, MSMEs. The investment will come from public and private funding. Jampro's president, Diane Edwards, says these partnerships will allow the 50 companies under the program to benefit from a special line of credit from the Jamaica Exim Bank through its Exporters Club program. Pointing out that the COVID-19 pandemic has caused vulnerability in regards to the stability of foreign exchange earnings, Ms. Edwards says Export Max 3 will broaden and diversify the number of players and products in the market.
So that diversification gives you a lot more stability because, as you know, if you've got 4 or 5 pillars to your business, you're in a lot better shape than if you only have one client that is the majority of your business. So Export Max really situates itself in the whole pivot to diversification of the economy and diversification of export markets and diversification of the number of companies who are involved in export.
Chief Executive Officer of the Jamaica Business Development Corporation, Valerie Vera, adds that MSMEs must seize the opportunity to establish themselves as important players in the export market.
For the MSMEs, I think it's critical to ensure that they understand that they can be a part of an export program. They can earn in the global market space if they do it right, if they organize themselves right and be prepared to work and do what is required in that market.
Mining communities across the island are set to benefit from more than $60 million being allocated under the Bauxite Community Development Program. Minister of Transport and Mining Robert Montague says this is to assist with the creation of sustainable projects to ensure there is life after bauxite. Speaking at the recent launch, the minister insisted that these projects should not be created without community consultations, and the input of the Bauxite Community Councils must be reflected in the final decisions. The Bauxite Community Development Program was formed in 1996 to facilitate the reinvestment of earnings from the bauxite or alumina industry in communities affected by mining operations. So far, more than 300 community projects have been implemented at a cost of over $580 million. The Ministry of Labour and Social Security took another step to formalize the services of domestic workers when it signed a Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, with the Jamaica Household Workers Union yesterday. The MOU allows for the promotion of the services of the Ministry's Labour Market Information System, LMIS, among members of the union.
Under this MOU, the Labour Market Information System will provide, as I understand it, the main desktop computers for use of the LMIS portal at the Jamaica Household Workers Union. These facilities, I expect, will be fully utilized to the benefit of the members and to the wider Jamaica.
Through LMIS, employers can post job openings and search for matching candidates, while job seekers can post resumes and apply for jobs online. The Labour Ministry will manage the system and train union members in its use. The ministry will also assist the union in finding suitable candidates for vacancies posted on the LMIS. And finally, this year's ceremony of investiture and presentation of national honors and awards will be a virtual event in keeping with government's social distance protocol to limit potential for the spread of COVID-19. In place of the usual live function at King's House, the National Heroes Day event will have 2 components. There is to be a live stream of the floral tribute in honor of our national heroes, broadcast from National Heroes Park, beginning at 8:30 a.m. on national television and social media. The second component is a pre-packaged production featuring the award recipients being honored this year, a congratulatory message by the Governor General, and remarks on behalf of the award recipients offered by Professor Orlando Patterson. 199 Jamaicans will be honored with various awards recognizing their contribution to national development in a number of areas. The presentations will be interspersed with performances by well-known Jamaican artists. And that's it for JIS News Today. I'm Theodore Henry. Thanks for watching.
An important message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness. What to do if you think you have been exposed or are experiencing signs and symptoms of COVID-19. Immediately call 888-1-LOVE. That's 888-663-5683. In addition, you should stay at home. Don't go to work, school, or any public place. Do not use public transport, and avoid visitors to your home. You may need to do this for up to 14 days to reduce the spread of the infection. A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
New curfew measures, changes made to border restrictions, and COVID-19 testing to include antigen tests. You're watching Jamaica House Weekly. I'm Lorraine Mendez. Prime Minister Andrew Holness was in Parliament last week Tuesday, where he made several announcements. Among them are changes to border restrictions under Jamaica's controlled entry program. As of October 10, travellers can submit either a PCR or antigen test to meet the pre-testing requirements for visitors from high-risk countries. Previously, only PCR test results were accepted. Prime Minister Holness said this change would facilitate timely processing of a much larger number of applicants.
This should make it easier for visitors, both Jamaicans coming from overseas, Jamaicans who have gone overseas for visits, coming back into the island, Jamaicans who live overseas but who want to visit, and for tourists who are visiting Jamaica, to meet the pre-testing requirement, as antigen tests are more readily available and are faster and cheaper than PCR tests.
The Prime Minister also announced that applicants on the Visit Jamaica platform were no longer required to upload their COVID-19 test certificate. However, they were required to present it and the usual travel authorization at the airport when they checked in for their flights. Residents of Jamaica will continue to apply for their travel authorization on the Jam COVID site and are not subject to the pre-testing requirement. Still on COVID-19 testing, Prime Minister Holness has advised that the Ministry of Health and Wellness is expanding local testing for COVID-19 to include the use of antigen tests. He said this move followed approval from the World Health Organization and Pan American Health Organization. It's among measures to increase the availability of COVID testing in the country, which is an important tool in the fight to control its spread among the population.
While the PCR test remains the gold standard, the antigen tests achieve a high degree of reliability at a fraction of the cost, with results being available within 30 minutes. Antigen testing will be for persons who are symptomatic and will be done at suitable sites and approved laboratories.
The Prime Minister also indicated that the Health Ministry would be assessing and improving private laboratories to conduct COVID-19 testing. In doing so, he said it was extremely important that the ministry had full visibility of all the test results. As a result, all private labs conducting testing would be mandated to report the results to the National Public Health Laboratory. In his address to the House of Representatives last week, Prime Minister Andrew Holness also announced a range of measures to further control the spread of COVID-19 in the country. The island-wide curfew time of 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. remains in effect until October 18, but begins earlier at 3 p.m. daily on October 18 and 19, ending 5 a.m. October 20.
We have considered where we are in the progression of the pandemic in the country, and we have taken a decision to discourage parties and gatherings which are normally held during the Heroes Weekend. Thereafter, as we have done before, the curfew will move to 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. the following day, each day ending 5 a.m. Sunday, November 1, 2020.
He said the gathering limit would remain at 15 persons until October 31. Other restrictions on funerals, parties or events and burials also remain in effect until the end of the month. So too the provision requiring taxis to carry one person less than the maximum number allowed on their license. At the same time, government is lowering the age limit for seniors required to stay at home from 70 to 65 years.
Given the vulnerability of persons in this age group, particularly those with comorbidities, I cannot overemphasize the importance of strict adherence. Most of our deaths are persons in this category.
Meanwhile, Whitfield Town in Kingston and Waterford in St. Catherine have been placed under longer curfew hours and other restrictions on movement to curtail the spread of the virus in these areas. The curfew time for both areas is now from 6 p.m. each day to 5 a.m. the following day. This will stay in effect from October 6 to 20, and during the curfew hours, only essential workers with identification will be allowed to enter or exit the areas. The limit on public gathering for these communities has been reduced to no more than 6 persons from October 7 to 19. Prime Minister Holness said Whitfield Town had 21 COVID-19 cases, while Waterford had 24 active cases and 5 deaths. He said both communities were among highly trafficked areas across the 2 parishes, which are of special concern for an exponential rise in cases due to their dense populations.
Kingston and St. Andrew and St. Catherine account for almost 70% of the new cases in September. While the cases in these parishes are spread across communities, there are some communities that are particularly affected and show a high concentration of cases.
The Prime Minister added that all the other existing restrictions, such as mask wearing and physical distances, would be strictly enforced.
These actions will be underpinned by increasing public education and awareness through extensive community engagement.
And that's it for Jamaica House Weekly. Be sure to join us next time for more of the news stories coming out of the office of the Prime Minister.
I love waking up every day in this country. This is where I was born and raised. I have such a passion for my country, and for me this is home. In Jamaica, a lot of people, they look at just like beach, sea, sand, but our mountains are something to behold. It's majestic up there, and it's a different type of peace. It's a different type of lifestyle completely. I could mention many different places that are amazing, but the one thing I do love about Jamaica as well is that you can find that relaxation, you can find that chill in your backyard. Apart from it being an incredibly beautiful country, an incredibly beautiful island, we have a wonderful, wonderful culture, wonderful, vibrant, colorful people. There is definitely a realness to Jamaica. There's definitely something that no matter what keeps you in touch with reality here. Why come to Jamaica? It all comes back down to Jamaica as a whole. The food, the music, the culture, the people, the climate. Come out and meet us, come out and experience what Jamaica has to offer.
In the week leading up to Heroes Day, we usually make the time to remember the sacrifices of our national heroes. Today, we look at the life of Sam Sharp, a relentless leader in the abolition of slavery.
Think on this. How would you feel if Sunday is your regular rest day off from work, but just because Christmas Day falls on that day, your boss unilaterally decides you do not deserve an extra day of rest? Added to that, the previous Christmas you were entitled to 3 days off during the season, but months before this particular holiday, a law was passed giving only 2 days. This is the kind of injustice and ill treatment that was meted out to Samuel Sharp. Up to 1830, the enslaved were allowed 3 days holiday at Christmas. In February 1831, the House of Assembly passed a law reducing Christmas holidays from 3 to 2, Christmas and Boxing Day only. Since Christmas Day 1831 fell on Sunday, a rest day, Sharp believed that they were entitled to the following Tuesday. A strike ensued. The resistance to work ballooned into what history records as the Christmas Rebellion, the ill-fated event that helped pave the way to freedom. Born about 1780, Sam Sharp was the slave of an English lawyer in Montego Bay, St. James. Sharp was the lay deacon of the Burchell Baptist Church and became a leader in the congregation. Sam, Daddy Sharp, saw the injustices of slavery and inspired his fellow brothers and sisters to participate in Jamaica's first strike action. There were no labor laws at that time that spoke to the rights or privileges of slaves. Sharp may be considered a forerunner to the labor movement as he fought for the rights of his fellow workers. For this, Samuel Sharp was hanged on May 23, 1832. But as he said,
I would rather die upon yonder gallows than live in slavery.
In 1834, the abolition bill was passed by the British Parliament, and in 1838, slavery was abolished.
The JIS Heritage Competition is celebrating 10 years of youth expression on Jamaican history, culture, and tradition. If you're a primary level student, 9 to 12 years old, enter the essay competition. Write 400 to 500 words on the topic. I promise to stand up for justice, brotherhood, and peace. Identify a Jamaican from our past or an institution that exemplifies this statement from our national pledge and say why. Secondary level students, enter the poster competition. And tertiary students, send us your best snap for the photo competition. The topic, I promise to stand up for justice, brotherhood, and peace. Enter now and play your part in preserving our national heritage. Great prizes to be won. Competition closes October 24. For competition rules and guidelines, contact the JIS.
Let's journey now to the Philippa Baptist Church in Spanish Town, St. Catherine. On the property lies remnants of the shackles our forefathers shed in 1838.
It was our own national hero, the Right Excellent Sam Sharp, an enslaved man and a freedom fighter who said, "I would rather die upon yonder gallows than live in slavery." That sentiment was also shared by many other slaves. But the fight for freedom and the hope for victory brought liberation to many. Right here in Jamaica, the movement to end slavery was very active, and landmarks across the island document this part of our history.
We are on the Emancipation Trail, and we're looking at the symbolic parts of Jamaica which relate to emancipation, a very important change of status in our country. We're here in the Philippa Baptist Church compound in Spanish Town. Spanish Town is a very old city, founded in 1539, I believe, and this particular site was where the Baptists created a congregation in 1818. And this church, built by the Baptists at the time of Reverend Filippo, was part of the congregation that was very supportive of the move to emancipate all enslavement. And that is a magnificent building going back probably close to 200 years. This church is very historic. Right here, under this tamarind tree, and identified by this plaque, is the slave chains which were buried on August the 1st, 1838. And it is now my pleasure to introduce Deacon Ivan O'Connor, a member of this congregation, who is going to tell us some more about this very historic site and its relationship to emancipation.
I understand that part of the Declaration of Emancipation was read from the steps of this church. And a deep hole was dug right here, and all the chains that were available were put in there and covered. And a tamarind tree was put there as a monument. I understand that the first tamarind tree was destroyed by the 51 hurricane, but it was replaced. And it stands here now as a monument where people can come and get tamarind and remember the slavery chains.
And touch the monument,
right,
as part of our experience,
right, it is here
of
as a
what
reminder.
Emancipation was all about.
Right.
But I also think we have to remind ourselves that the original official declaration was read from the steps of King's House,
That's
the facade which is still in front of the square.
That square is Emancipation Square, which is also in Spanish Town and just a few meters away from the Philippa Baptist Church. Here was once the town center. Other important buildings in the square include the old House of Assembly, Rodney's Memorial, and the old courthouse. The area was severely damaged by fire as well as the 1692 earthquake, but parts of the buildings have since been restored and put to use. Back over at the Philippa Baptist Church,
we want to reaffirm how important the Baptist movement and denomination was to emancipation. They were major players in persuading the English government to declare free at last, emancipation on the 1st of August, 1838.
And it is believed that the chains of slaves were buried at the Philippa Baptist Church due to its close proximity to Emancipation Square and the unrelenting movement by the Baptist Church to put an end to slavery.
Somebody said some time ago, how can we write the history of Jamaica without including the Baptists? The Baptists were one of the churches that were very integral to the teaching of the slaves and emancipation. James Philippo was one of the persons who was integral in getting emancipation for the slaves in Jamaica.
While emancipation was declared for slaves, their conditions were not improved. So the movement for a more just society was challenged by Paul Bogle and George William Gordon. They were also part of the Baptist movement and later became two of our national heroes. As a result of this involvement, Baptist work in Jamaica became an enduring symbol of the church's opposition to slavery and all other forms of injustice.
This building was put up sometime about 1827 thereabout and has been maintained over time. It's a natural heritage site, and so the National Heritage Trust has control over what happens here. Right after emancipation, James Philippo established free villages like in Sligoville, in parts of Clarendon, and also established churches. So this church is steeped in our history in Jamaica.
That music signals the end of our program. But first, I leave you with this quote from our first national hero, Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Take advantage of every opportunity. Where there's none, make it for yourself. To watch this program again or any other, visit our website, jis.gov.jm, or subscribe to our YouTube channel. And while you're online, send your feedback to Jamaica Magazine at jis.gov.jm or via tweet at JISnews. You may also find us on all the major social media platforms and through our mobile app that's Android and iOS compatible. On behalf of the production crew, I'm Adrian Atkinson. Do take care.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.